And we are.
We're live.
Allegedly live. So that was, here we are, Lawyer Talk Live, those tuning in across the globe, spanning the globe for a constant variety of talk, lawyer talk. Here we are. So live with the Blitz, some interesting questions. You know what? Glaringly no COVID related, no mask related.
That was my bet internally that we weren't going to have anything like that because people are getting out doing a lot. I will say this, the State Highway Patrol reported that in Columbus, Ohio, or Central Ohio, less deaths than average this vehicle deaths this Memorial Day.
Well, that's good. I wonder why. It could be because nobody's out doing anything or driving and nothing's
Are they not?
open. I don't know.
Thought they were out.
Well, no, it was pretty busy last week prior to. I thought it was kind of crazy.
I got my panties in a bunch a while back because I was all stressed driving and like I had to go for, this is like middle of the afternoon. I picked up my son at school and I was driving across town and I had to go somewhere and I was all tense and I was like, what is going on? I haven't felt like that. And I looked, there's traffic.
There's traffic.
Yes. this morning.
There's idiots texting and doing things. Man, I was driving. I forgot to tell, I was going to tell you guys this. I was driving down the Arlington Mallway, which is like the old part of Arlington. There's a pool there and the school is there. And I'm just sort of cruising around listening to Johnny Cash of all things. And behind me is not a motorcycle, not a moped, but one of those motorized bikes. Maybe that is a moped. You know what I'm talking about. But not like a Vespa, but it looked like a bicycle.
Like the Wizard.
A Wizard, yeah.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really behind me. I look over. I'm in the right-hand lane. And this is a 2-lane street. And I look over and sort of in my back blind spot, there's this dude on this thing looking at me. And I'm looking, I'm like, I'm at a lot. Like, what is he doing? And I guess he was going to try to pass me. I don't even know what he was doing. So I gave him a weird look, like, and it wasn't even mad. I was just sort of shocked to see him. So I come up upon a car that was stopped with their 4-ways on about 150 yards up. I put on my left blinker. I looked around my left mirror and around my shoulder, and I started to pull out. And then I hear the F-U, SOB, you're an ad, blah, 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 blah. Well, there's this dude on the Vipper. What'd you call it?
Wizard.
The Wizard.
Wizard.
Dude on the Wizard.
Wizard.
The Wizard.
No, not a wizard.
Not the wonderful wizarding world.
He was riding a wizard.
Yeah, he was riding a wizard. And he starts going ballistic, man. I mean, he is screaming at me, middle fingers up, right by a school. And, you know, I had that moment where I'm just like, oh yeah, well, you know, and then I was like, hit the gas, I'm going after it. And I thought to myself, what are you doing? Like, what am I going to go fight a guy?
He
on
has
the
to abide by the rules of the road. Of course.
He had no business being on like next to me like that.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
It's like they have secret rules that they think they have the rules don't apply to the wizards.
No, these guys are the wizards.
Was there a bicycle lane? You know
No, it was a street. It was a
2-lane street. No bicycle lane.
Street, no bicycle lane, no nothing.
Yeah, and don't even get me started on that.
But here's my other thing. To be honest with you, even if there's a bicycle lane, Wizard, no bicycle lane.
He's got to be
because he is now in a motorized vehicle.
That's an interesting thing because it's true that like you can get a DUI. Yeah, there was something like that.
There's the Wizard.
That's what it was. It was a Wizard.
That's a hell of a bike. I like that.
Is that a new Wizard?
He paid $1,400 for that Wizard.
That's at Walmart. Look at that bad boy.
Yeah, they're bad at the
Let's show it to the people. Man. There you go.
Show it to the people. So here it is. The Phantomo All-Terrain Fat Tire 2021 79cc motorized bicycle.
Pretty sweet. That's right. Look at that. Love the rat trap at the front and the back. Look at that. A little army green action.
He's got the Holly Hobby racks. You can put a little picnic basket there.
Put a little picnic basket. How about a little horn?
But on that, you know, the weather's getting nicer. People should keep their eyes out for motorcycles on the roadways.
Oh, yeah.
You should. I saw
bicycles, motorcycles.
Somebody on Facebook there was a nasty mangled bike. So no, I agree. I mean, I was mad that I didn't see the guy. And this is I guess, all right. So you're a motorcycle. You guys both ride motorcycles. Yeah. To me, I look for things like that, but I don't look for things like that where I'm not supposed to see things like that. So I wouldn't have looked for this guy in the left lane going the same direction as me he shouldn't have been there.
You're saying he was in oncoming traffic lane?
Yes.
Plus it's a Wizard. Why? It's not like it's
he was. As I was going through the light.
You weren't going fast enough for him for his Wizard?
I was going 25.
His Wizard speed?
I probably wasn't even going 20. So there's a light.
He probably doesn't even have a speedometer. He was like, thought you were going too slow.
And he sure doesn't have 1 3/4 straight pipes on that bad boy.
No. But the point is, like, I was cruising along, and like, he had no business trying to pass me right there. I was going 25. Now, then there was a car in my lane 4 ways on, and I had a choice. I could stop and just sit there. But so I slowed down. I looked to my left. I looked in my mirrors, and I got the bubble mirrors that show everything. And I did my best to look around, put my blinkers on or my left signal on. And I went around the car in the left lane. He was already there and trying to do the same thing, and like way in there. And I just thought, what are you doing? Like, what is he doing?
He was whizzing along.
He was whizzing along.
And it's like, I always do look for motorcycles, but don't be in a place you're not supposed to be. I mean, I guess there's this responsibility on everybody's part on the road. Like, if you're doing something stupid and you shouldn't be in some place, don't get mad when somebody doesn't see you there.
Oh, I never can unless they look right at me and they still pull out in front of me. And I've had that happen.
Well, I'm not talking about that scenario. Like,
right.
If somebody just makes a mistake, or there's look, we all have made mistakes driving. It happens. You miss something. You check the radio at the wrong time. You check your watch at the wrong, or you're looking to the left when something's coming from. I mean, it happens.
Well, it's difficult to see a bicyclist.
And it's difficult to see a bicyclist where they're not supposed to be. That's the problem. And anyway,
it's hard.
Then I had that sort of guttural road rage reaction. I'm a 51-year-old man, and I just thought to myself, I'm gonna kick his ass. Yeah.
Let me at him.
And I'm sure he was thinking the same thing. And then I got home and I was thinking to myself, now, how does that one play out? Like, I go cut him off. I get out. We start swinging. Somebody gets the better of somebody.
Pull your hamstring.
And then what? Like, then really, what happens next? It's just nothing good.
I showed
nothing
you.
Good. There's that 6-year-old got killed there in California, road rage incident.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah, I think they just found that they had pictures of the car, and
really?
Road rage, and they just fired shots into the other car.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, that was a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I think they were on the lookout. I think they have located the van or the vehicle that was in it. But that's just where it comes down to. I think I remember here in Ohio somewhere, like outside of Gahanna, this is a few years back, a guy got stabbed to death.
Yeah, there's been a couple. That was a big deal here in Ohio for a while, and they were watching that. It's just
you got to kind of watch it, and just because it's easy to have somebody make you snap.
It happens. It's like this flash. I got this flash, and I just thought, who is he? What is he doing? And he's mad at me for this. It's like, no, you need to say you're sorry, man.
Get a caller on the Blitz though this morning who remembered listening to Randy and Loper in the morning.
Oh yeah,
an interview, and that's the last thing I remember. So I'm trying to think to myself, it's like the last thing I remember is an interview, and it's like, and somehow I guess I got a OMVI.
Oh my God,
it says right. I can't, and
it's kind of rocky. My memory that morning,
a little rocky there. So it's like, I just want to know what he was doing. To be listening to Randy and Loper.
All right. So we're going to. The bike law in the United States, a bicycle must be operated at or near the right side of the roadway as practical. Now, this is true. If you're on the road and you're supposed to be on the road, you're not supposed to be on the sidewalks. And if you're on the road, I had a case like this where a bicycle, it's actually a friend of mine. He was tooling along on his bike, and the cars had sort of stopped in front of him. So he was going to do what any bicyclist would do. What was the movie with Kevin Bacon? Kevin Bacon was in a movie where he was a former stockbroker, like lost all his dad money or something. So he quit being a stockbroker and became a bicycle delivery guy it was a hilly city.
I bet that movie was a hit.
It was a Kevin Bacon special.
That was just
it's called Quicksilver, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I'll look that up, but here's so I was going to ask you about electric bikes, and same thing goes for an electric bicycle.
On roadway show right, he's near to the right. Yeah. And he wasn't doing that. So I'm in the right. Anyway, my buddy was cruising along, and he decided he was going to go around on the right side and just keep on tooling down the traffic. Well, guess what? Somebody opened up their car door to get out.
Oh man.
He goes, head over heels over the handlebars, literally rips the door off this guy's car. I think there was some damage there, and he got cited.
Yeah, he should.
Yeah, he got cited. Yeah, and he's like, I was just on a bicycle. And I'm like,
yeah.
And he took it well. He was like, yeah, I know. I was in a hurry, and I just thought I could do it. And I've probably done that too at times. But I guess, and the other point there, and then we'll get back to the caller. But the other point is that if you're drunk on a bicycle, not a defense. A Quicksilver, I had it right. Look at that, 1986 American drama. Oh, I knew it was a Michael Donnelly film or a Thomas Michael Donnelly. I didn't know.
Larry Fishburne's in that one.
Oh yeah, so there's a seventh or the 6 degrees or whatever it is from the Bacon Mania. But yeah, so old Kevin Bacon was a Quicksilver guy.
There you go.
But yeah, you can get a DUI on a bike. It happens all the time.
I've get them on a tractor.
I was just going to say, get on your long tractor.
Yeah.
Yep, you can get them. You can get them.
Yeah.
So this guy wakes up in the ICU, and maybe he's got a crumpled up ticket sitting on his chest.
Yep.
No idea what happens. I get this a lot.
Dude.
Now, what I was worried about with him, frankly, and I didn't want to go into too much detail, but just generally speaking, these are situations where often DUIs will get dismissed because somebody's really hurt. And so if you're in my car and I wake up in the ICU and I've got a blood alcohol content above the legal limit, and there's a ticket on my chest, and it turns out later you die, well, now I'm going to be charged with some version of murder. They're going to dismiss the OVI case in traffic court, and they're going to indict you for the big daddy felonies. And that's what I was a little worried about. But it sounds like they just entered a not guilty plea. I would need to know more there, but happens a lot. And what they do, it's a good time to talk about this. There's different rules about this. They can't just go in and take your blood. They can't go in and take your urine. They can't do those things. There's rules of play there. And, generally, if you're on the side of the road and they say, well, Jared, would you like to give us a breath sample? And you're like, nah, I think I'll pass on that one. Well, there's a consequence to that. And they will take your driver's license immediately and give you a license suspension. And they say they can do that because of something called implied consent. Impliedly, you consent to have us take a sample of your blood, breath, or urine. Doesn't mean we're going to hold you down and force you, but you've consented. And that means if you don't consent, there can be a consequence, and that's the license suspension. Now, if you're unconscious, it doesn't mean that they can just go in and snag your blood. Doesn't mean they can go in and just grab the old urine sack from the hanger and take a sample, which I've had happen before, believe it or not. It's not a valid test, even if you did consent to that. But they can't do those things, and it becomes very tricky on what happens when they do. There are rules on how they have to collect it. There's time limits on when they have to collect it, and then sort of the trump everything is sometimes they'll just go get a search warrant. They'll say, "Well, Jared, he is unconscious because he's wasted and he's had a head injury and he's on the hospital gurney. So we're going to go wake up old Judge Jones over there at 2 a.m. and he's going to sign a warrant that lets us go pull his blood." So they can do that, and that's happened. I had a recent vehicular homicide where they did just that. So I was a little worried when he was talking, like maybe somebody's hurt here, and that's why your OVI went away.
It sounds like he just didn't know. He's like, they pled not guilty. Who knows? Yeah,
I mean,
you weren't there.
I wasn't there. So what he said made sense. I mean, if he didn't, both things could make sense. He shows up and the public defender say, well, guess what? Your OVI is getting dismissed. We're just going to plead not guilty to the rest of it. Or it could be, guess what? We just pled not guilty. We'll send you some paperwork. See you later. Either way, he's not going to know what's going on. Why? Because they don't have the time. And even if they did have the time, that they may not take the time to explain everything thoroughly. That's why in situations like this, get a lawyer. And I'm not saying public defenders aren't lawyers. I'm not saying they're not good lawyers. They are.
Yeah.
But if you need answers and you can't get through, that doesn't mean they're bad. It means they're busy. And you may want to get some additional information. I talked to somebody over the weekend like that and, spent 20 minutes on the phone with them, got him fixed right up, pointed in the right direction, said, see you next week. Made him feel better. But yeah, that's a scary thought. Another reason, don't drive drunk.
Uber.
Yeah. Well, one time in mid 90s there, I pulled out in Gahanna, pulled out of a bar, had a headlight out. Didn't realize I had the headlight out. I get pulled over, cops talking to me. I give them the old, I had 2 beers. Mm-hmm. Right? Everybody had 2 beers, right? Everybody
can't say 1 because that sounds like a lie. You can't say 3 because now you're getting close.
Yeah.
And you can't say none because you smell like beer.
And I can't. Yeah. So I had the 2 and a couple of shots, whatever. But as I'm talking to him, he has me get out. I do the test. I mean, I do everything you say not to do. I do all the tests. And then I'm talking to him and he was like, "You told me you've been drinking. You seem fine to me. It's your good day. I'm going to have you blow into this." He's got a mobile breathalyzer. I'm like, "Well, that doesn't seem like a good day to me. This seemed like a trick." Right? It did. And I was like, how is this good? And he
It's
said,
a trick.
he said, "Well, if you blow over, I'm going to have you park your car in that parking lot and somebody come get you.
Yeah.
If you're fine, I'll let you go." Once again, this seems like a trick.
That doesn't hardly seem.
I blew into this, blew into this, blew into this. Don't know what happened. It beeped. The light came on. He's staring at it. He's staring at me. He's like, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going home." He said, "What are you doing tomorrow morning?" I said, "I'm replacing the headlight." He said, "Get out of here."
Wow.
And I mean, because I was right there, Flanagan's, right there at 60.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
I turned left.
I mean, it's not like people leave Flanagan's drunk.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And I saw him too, because I didn't realize I had the headlight out, but I saw him pull over to the side and whip around. I said, "Well, he's coming for me." Just saw me pull out of the bar. And then I remember there's a couple other cops that showed up. At one point in time, I'm sitting there and he was like this. He flashing in there, and I was an S10 Blazer. Had a little console there, and he sees his baggie hanging out. He says, "What's that bag?" I said, "That's my quarter bag." and that's what he did. He was like, "What?" I will go here, and I pull it out to him. It's full of quarters because I didn't have a washer and dryer. I used the laundromat, so that was my quarter bag, and
just enough to break the old ice.
My God!
And but I didn't know, and I was standing there. I kind of remember contemplating myself like, you shouldn't be doing this, but then he let me go. Now, the bad part probably is that I went straight to Dino's of 161 because that's where we were going. I was going to meet up, and I lived right off 161 at the time there. So just, stop by Dino's real quick.
Right.
Dino's
Change of
on
plans.
161.
Just change of plans.
With the headlight out, like, one cop pulled me over.
Yeah.
What's the odds
What
of
are
two?
the odds of the next one?
Yeah.
Can't happen.
I'm gonna be, but then Gahanna, I understand 161. Everybody's got one headlight over there. 161, 71 area.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And everybody's got bungee cords and zip ties and everything going on their cars in that neighborhood.
See, what we used to say is, and not used to, but a very common saying is, "Look, don't break the law while you're breaking the law."
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Don't look, you're breaking the law. Don't break the law.
Right.
If you're driving drunk, you're breaking the law. Don't drive with a headlight out.
And
don't pull in the bank with "I rob banks" painted on the side of your car as you run in to rob the bank.
It's like you rob the bank, you get away with it, and then you're going to go speed through the school zone on the way home with a bunch of blue or red dye money on your front seat. It's like,
I steal shit.
Yeah, it's it's just not smart. So that's the trick. Is I don't know what the trick is for you. It's like you just got out of it.
I just got out of it.
You just got out of it. So I was going to say the trick is don't do the field sobriety test. You don't have to do the field sobriety test. Let me say that again. You don't have to do the field sobriety test. And everybody's going to say, "Well, why don't I have to do the field?" Because you don't have to do the field sobriety. So here's the deal. A field sobriety test is really just a mechanism that you are providing to the other side. The other side, the big arm of the government, the police, law dog, Johnny Law, whatever you're going to say, Buford Pusser, you're going to provide them a way to describe how drunk you are. And then you're also going to provide them a movie that they get to show the jury about how drunk you are. So everything you're doing nowadays is going to be on tape. There's a video of it, and some of them are quite, the resolution is amazing, really. I mean, I've seen people's eyes dilating in some of these body cams now. It's really amazing. And if you don't have any of that, it's not like they're going to think you're not drunk. They know you're drunk. I mean, last time you saw a drunk guy at a party at a bar and you weren't drunk yet, you didn't ask him to do a walk. Oh man, you look like you might have been drinking. Hey, can you do a walk and turn test for me? I'd like to confirm that. No, right away that Jared's drunk. I can look right at you and say, "Oh, that guy's wasted." There's a look, man. There's an attitude. You got that little sway.
Dang, man. Back in high school, I remember we were at a house party and a buddy goes to leave because he's got to deliver newspapers. Okay, so it's like getting close to 3 or 4 in the morning, whatever. They're dropping off the dispatch. He's got to wrap them up, put the Band-Aids on them, rubber bands on them, inserts. And he comes back into the house. He's like, "Hey, man, come here." Now, it wasn't him. He's a friend of mine. "I hate your car." He hit his car on the way out, put a big dent on the side. He's stammering and everything. We're like, hey, man, it's cool. You know, my dad's got a good shop, man. We'll get this fixed. We talk about it. Sorry, man. And then me and my other buddy let him get in the car. He can't even make it out the driveway yet. We're like waving to him.
Hey, we love you, man. We love you.
Have a good time delivering the dispatch. You know, so it just
my dad's got a bitchin' set of tools.
my dad's got a bitchin' set of tools play. We'll get that thing put right back together.
Well, and that brings up another good point is that I tell people, I give talks on this sometimes now to kids and others, but it's like, how many people really think to themselves, man, I've had a few beers. I better not drive. I'll kill somebody. No, you think I might get pulled over and get a DUI. You never think I might actually get in a crash and kill myself or the other guy come in or run over a kid or do anything else. So it's funny how we are able to say, yeah, look, man, good luck with the papers. No worry about the damage to our car here. We'll get this fixed right up. You're not thinking to yourself, boy, he better not drive. He might get hurt. And even if you were, you're thinking, I hope he doesn't get caught. So anyway, that's the 2 cents that I have on that now. Now, did I have that kind of wisdom when I was 19, 20, or in my 20s? No way. You know, when you were still partying and doing the thing, that's just what it was. But
you were unsafe at any speed.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. And, but Mr. ICU, you know, there's a good chance he's hurt somebody and the case has been dismissed for a bigger charge. And if that's the situation, there is a lot that goes into defending those cases. There is a lot. And I mean a lot. You cannot just go into that willy-nilly. You want to get somebody competent to deal with it. So what else did we have on the old hit parade? Medical bills.
I saw that old Amazon is kind of looking like they're dropping the medical. I mean, not the medical, just marijuana. Like if you piss dirty on weed, unless you, they kind of treat it like alcohol to where you're not allowed to show up drunk or allowed to show up high if they know that or whatever. But looks, and I started, it was an article. I didn't read the whole thing. I just saw it just popped up. And I was thinking to myself, well, that's because they can't hire anybody.
Yeah.
And after COVID, everybody's got weed in their system.
Yeah. What's like,
you know what I mean?
Or
it's
CBD.
Like,
I mean, you know,
there's
you know?
the Delta 8s.
There it is. They dropped testing. Wow.
For
some jobs, not all.
Yeah, I'm sure it's like forklift people, probably not.
For drivers.
Yeah,
because it's what it's going to be is it's an insurance thing. So it depends on your insurance. Now, obviously, Jeff Bezos can get, you know, a really good price on insurance, I'm sure.
Well, no, you bring up a good point. There is something out there, and I have this conversation with most DUIs that come in my office. I ask them what they do for a living, and they look at me sort of strange. I'm like, listen, here's what I need to know. If you are in sales, if you're a driver, if you do something at work where they supply you a car and or some vehicle to drive, they probably have something called fleet insurance. And the fleet insurance means they're insuring the entire fleet of vehicles for the employer. And if you don't, or if you get a DUI, you're probably losing your job.
Yeah, here it is. Yeah, exactly. Amazon will no longer screen its job applicants for marijuana use for any positions not regulated
by DOT.
Yeah, so your warehouse guys, feel free, spark it, baby.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what, Amazon has an interesting model too. I think they sort of farm out 1099 out the delivery guys.
Yeah, they do.
You know, they encourage people to set up their own delivery companies.
Yes,
and then get an Amazon contract. And I've known a few people that have done that, and it's smart for Amazon. It gives people an opportunity to set up a business, but it's really smart for Amazon because they avoid a lot of that liability. Because there's another concept called respondeat superior, meaning Jared's driving for Amazon. Jared's he's got a real quarter bag, smoking them if you got them all the way, dropping packages off, having a blast, saying hello to the dogs and the families. And, you know, you get in a wreck and hurt somebody. If you're on Amazon's dime, then they're responsible.
Yep.
Generally speaking, they're going to sue the deep pockets. So
this is interesting. So this was
let's get it up there. So
this was in response to a New York City law.
Here, show the crowd, man.
And so this is interesting. So Amazon was hit with a proposed class action lawsuit because the company was violating New York City law by testing applicants for jobs at local facilities for marijuana.
Yeah. First of all, I can't use New York City law as any sort of gold standard on anything that makes rational sense.
Apparently Bezos said so.
Yeah. Well, if The other thing that comes to mind here is this push. There was a big push out in California to turn all the Ubers and food
Oh
delivery folks
yeah,
and all
down
the
to musicians, down to everybody.
you can't be 1099s anymore.
Yeah,
And that impacts also, like, first of all, just what we were talking about. So if I would say this, somebody is going to pay the extra, right? Somebody's going to pay the extra. So all of a sudden, the price of deliveries is going to double for Amazon, or maybe not quite double. I had 30%, 40%. And maybe double, actually, because then you got to maintain vehicles. You got to do it's like it changes everything. And I am not going to go work for Amazon as an employee, as a W-2, because I don't want to I don't want any of this nonsense. So now it's going to just change the cost structure across the board. And everybody's like, wow, that's extra tax money for the government. Yeah. Yeah. Well, who's going to pay that? You don't think your little Prime free deliveries are going to continue, do you? Or all of a sudden the Prime membership doubles.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. That's going to double.
Like,
Right.
that's going to get passed on to the old consumers.
But this one's for you, Jared. I don't think Bezos is hurting. Space Force.
Get it up on the screen.
Yeah. Space Force just got their budget increased from 40 million last year to 15 billion. And looky, Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos.
yeah, no, that's what I said. I was like, I said the private market's going to go into there and start subcontract, and they don't have to answer. A private company doesn't have to answer to anybody.
No, just ask Boeing. Just ask, Raytheon.
And they don't have to tell you what they're doing.
No,
either.
correct.
Like the government's got to tell you what they're doing, but Bezos like this. Hey, guess what? Does he even have a board?
They're free of. Well, this is Blue Origin. So that's his company.
That doesn't have a board. That's an LLC.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't have to. And at that, like I'm saying, the only people you'd have to tell what you're doing is your board. They don't have to tell anybody.
Well, no, because FOIA does not cover, which is Freedom of Information Act, that doesn't cover private businesses.
No.
And the government figured that out a long
Sure,
time
this is
ago.
the old Blackwater stuff, right? The old
Well,
mercenary
Raytheon,
soldiers.
what's Raytheon doing behind closed doors? What's freaking Boeing doing?
Well, and this is what it's just another way the government gets to bury money, transfer money, pay people. This is pretty similar to what happened with the virus funding, the gain of function funding.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's sort of like the pseudo semi-private, semi-public, semi-government, semi-not.
Funnel it through.
It goes through
Eco healthcare, whatever that is.
Like put it into a tunnel, and then inside the tunnel, there's like 50 doors you can go into, and you don't know which one it went into. It just
now my cousin-in-law met him in the Ozarks, the commander. In
former sub-commander.
Yep.
Oh God, he's twitchy.
But it was funny is that he listened to our podcast.
Really?
And he listened to the things I brought up because now he's going to work for Space Command. And he's got a position out there. So, I was probing him with the alien information. Right. I was hitting him hard. Yeah.
What do you say?
He had neither confirmed nor denied any of my suspicisions.
They never do.
But I think that he's going to go back and talk to some of the brass and let them know that we're on to him.
You've been discovered. We better include these guys.
I seen him look in his eyes a couple times as he wanted to change the subjects, and I was like this. I can see the wheels turning. He's like, well, I got to get to him.
This lawyer talk.
I got to be like this. Listen, there's people out there. They know.
Let's get him in front of Steve. Steve will interrogate him.
I tried to get him to admit that the Chinese had just recovered a newer ship than what we had recovered. He wouldn't confirm it, wouldn't deny it.
Never do.
He did go along with the craziness that they are launching into space. Yeah. He did go along with the research that the Russians and the Chinese that they're doing, that it's really been amped up lately.
Yeah. Well, like I said before, we have like 3,000 satellites or whatever up there. China has 400. Now and Russia has like 360. So there's a huge disparity.
Yes.
But they're catching up. They're
but
certainly
now
catching
you
up.
just talked about the meat producer that got hacked.
Yeah.
Right? So you get ready to pay more for a steak.
Oh, yeah, man.
Ground beef's coming around.
Hey, if it's up to Gates, man, you're eating plants that are steaks
but
now.
How is it that everything that Biden wants to destroy, the meat companies and the gas, how are they getting hacked?
All of a sudden. We just can't hold the hackers back.
Did you see, speaking of bad government policy, did you just see the latest on, let me see if I can find it. It's relevant to you on teen smoking.
What is it, down?
Up.
It's up?
Yep.
They need to quit smoking.
I think it's
I
up.
can help them out with some vape.
Let me see what the article said. It had to do.
Why is it up? Well, I'll have to see this article.
There was an article on reason.com.
Oh, what's the reason on that?
It had to do, here's the article. Teen cigarette smoking went up following flavored tobacco ban. Let me repeat.
Well, of course, ban it and they'll
Teen
take it.
cigarette smoking went up following the flavored tobacco ban. So this is what we all said was going to happen, right? I mean, it's like everybody thought, well, this flavored tobacco is encouraging or the flavored vaping is encouraging kids to vape and get addicted to tobacco. And then I think I put it this way, it's like, you can't just say all the kids who are vaping are only vaping because of flavored vaping. And there's going to be a certain number of those that would be smoking anyway. And I think this is the question I asked. I would want to know how many fewer kids are smoking now than they did 20 years ago before vape. And then, or say 5 or 10 years ago before vape. And that's where you got to start, because if you're vaping instead of smoking, they can try to make their arguments about why that's bad, but it's certainly better than cigarettes.
You know, they ran through. I've got a bunch. I haven't looked at them in a while. These are older charts, a couple years old now. But I did the research there and on teen smoking and younger and overall smoking, and how the 80s and 90s just had this huge spike, and that's right where I was at
Of teen smoking.
and tobacco use,
Yeah.
in general. And I'm going to tell you,
That's because we were
all
Gen X,
of
man.
my friends, everybody, we smoked, dipped, chewed. Everybody did.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like, damn, I mean, everybody did. I mean, I have got like one buddy that didn't. I don't think Stuart did. And a couple of times he put in a dip, I think. But
I love to dip and chew tobacco. And my other buddy Joe once said to me, he goes, they had this conversation when I wasn't there of like, who would be a smoker that they knew if it weren't bad for you. And my name came up immediately because I loved it. I loved the feel. It felt cool. It was like and maybe it's because of it. I used to watch.
I remember I bummed you. I gave you a couple cigarettes.
Sure. When I was drinking, even then, into my adult life, I used to love to smoke cigarettes.
No, I never saw you with a pack, but I remember a couple times you're like this. Hey, man, well, let me get one of those.
And I loved it. And I think, I wonder what it was. You know, I look back, I used to watch the old black and white movies, the old, the John Wayne. I just love just something about it. And then tobaccos or nicotine's really
now,
addicting.
I'm also curious too on this rise of younger people, these young hipster kids. You know what I've noticed, and maybe it's just what I've seen, rolling their own.
Yeah, that was cool for a couple of people to do that,
but I think that's on the uprise right now with the younger kids. I think right now there's more rolling their own.
Well, maybe because they can't get it. It might be easier to get.
You can get a jar of Durham. You can get a jar of Buglers. Remember the old Buglers?
Buglers, you bet, man.
I used to buy Buglers.
I remember stumbling into 7-Eleven.
Shitty tasting tobacco right there.
Stumbling into 7-Eleven there on across from the Southburg on campus.
Yep.
I stumbled in there and bought some Buglers one time.
South Heidelberg.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I used to buy it at Kroger's.
Yeah, so I'm reading this article. Basically, the argument is this: if you're not going to, it's the classic argument we always make here is that, if the government bans it, that's what this is bad, so the government should ban it. It's not like what would happen if we actually ban this. Will there be some other consequence? Where's the leak going to expose itself if it's not here? So you ban flavored vape products, which take whatever position you want on that. I'm not going to take that on right now. But do you think that that's just going to cause all kids never to use a cigarette or tobacco product ever again? No, of course not. Like, ban guns, man. That's going to end gun violence, won't it? Like, no, of course not. And even if you got rid of all the guns on the planet, now you're going to have a knife problem. And if you got rid of all the knives on the planet, you're going to have a billy club problem. You can't just say that we're going to ban something and then expect it just to end. There's always an adverse consequence. Always, always, always.
Oh, did you see where they were grilling the old going to be the leader of the ATF? And he was asked, what is your definition of an assault rifle?
Everything.
Yeah.
And
semi-automatic rifle.
He couldn't, he wouldn't give a definition. Then he kept wanting to go to what the ATF has. He said, no, I'm not asking that. You're going to be in charge of it. What is your definition? Couldn't get an answer.
No, he wouldn't give an answer because we already know what his definition is.
He couldn't. And he's
going to ban everything.
Here's the problem. it really, this is the biggest problem that's always existed with, hold on one second. This is the problem that's always existed with this assault weapons. The proposal to ban assault weapons is that you can't define it. People think like, oh, it's an assault weapon. I mean, AR-15s
looks scary.
That's a brand. I mean, it doesn't even stand for assault rifle.
No,
It's so stupid. And so and you're right, Jay. I used to say this. So you mean just get rid of all the really scary looking rifles?
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess what? That's going to leave about a half a dozen that I know of, that some of which I own, that are far more deadly than those things. You know, it's like you give me a 308 bolt action rifle at long range, and I'm going to be far more accurate, and it's a far better killing machine than a at that range. And I mean,
I wouldn't even say long range. Give it to me at 25 yards.
Well, that's what I mean. You know, now then they say, well, it's just the really scary looking ones or the automatic ones, and I think, well,
that's just playing on emotion.
It's not automatic.
That's putting the camel's nose under the tent to get them all banned.
And then they would. I've asked so many people, what is an assault weapon? I get no definition. And then a lot of people say, well, I mean the automatic rifles. I'm like, all right, there are none. There are plenty of automatic machine guns. That means it's fully automatic. They're machine guns. And yes, you can have those, but they're heavily regulated.
And you have to have a special permit, and it takes you like a year and a half to get the damn thing.
It's doable, but it's not like there's not many crimes out there happening with machine guns.
Nope.
And statistically speaking, there's very few crimes happening with AR-15 type weapons.
Handguns.
And most crimes are handguns. Now, then somebody said, well, we just don't need any semi-automatic weapons then. I said, well, then you're basically taking every gun I own, because almost all my handguns are semi-automatics.
They are.
I own 3 semi-automatic shotguns. I own 2 or 3 semi-automatic, not AR-15 rifles, like little 22 type things.
Mm-hmm.
And then you tell people that, and they're like, well, we're just talking about the AR-15s. Okay, and then back to what you said. Oh, the scary ones.
Scary ones. Yeah. And then that's just the camel nose under the tent.
And then somebody said to me, well, why do you need those semi-automatic shotguns? It's like, because I go bird hunting. I like 3 shots. Bang, bang, bang. Well, can't you? I mean, they used to shoot them with 1 shot. And I was like, yeah, it's better now.
Yeah.
It's way better.
We used to do a lot of things differently.
Yeah, it's like I used to have no air conditioning too, but now I turn it on when it gets a little bit warm. You know, it's like
we thought petrol was a waste. We use blubber for our oil.
Yeah, exactly. So you don't need those. And then you get to the spot where people start telling other people what they quote need. And there's nothing more offensive to me than somebody telling me what I need.
Yep.
And I can't imagine anything more offensive to you than me telling you what you need, either to do or not to do. It's just stupid. So speaking of gun control, we should bring this up. I just filed, Jared, you were there last year in the Ohio Supreme Court, State versus Weber.
I was there.
You were there.
I was in the big room.
You were in the big room.
It's a big room.
Very
neat. And one thing, I went there and watched Steve, and I was happy that there was a couple tours that came through, students.
Yeah.
And so I was sitting there because I was looking at the murals and the paintings, and it's very majestic in there. And I kind of moved a couple seats over so I could hear the teacher, because it's like, well, can I sit in on the class? You know, I mean, I would like to, because I was just sitting in here wondering what this all means, and you're explaining it all. So I was there because there was a break in between. I think we were just waiting for your time up or something.
Yeah.
And so I was just sitting in there, and it was neat to get to learn a little bit about the Supreme Court.
See how the sausage is made.
Yeah. And as an attorney, it's sort of an interesting experience. I mean, that was the first time I'd argued personally. I'd sat at council table with others, but that's the first time I argued personally in front of the Ohio Supreme Court. And it's a little, I guess what you have to do is sort of take in what you were taking in, sort of the majesty of it all, the formality of it all, the significance of it all. And it gives you a little bit of respect for the process, right? I mean, I think it should be formal. I think it should be a little intimidating. I think it should be big for all sorts of reasons, like a big room, big, tall. There's like all these judges sitting way above you, and you feel like you're
big to do.
It's a big to do, and you know, it was a great experience. So,
and I was watching the other cases that were being presented, and I was watching expressions and how each judge went along, because I knew what yours was going to be. I wanted to see, and it was just there was something about it at one point in time in Steve's argument that he would think is not going to be on our side was the one that kind of came around to be on our side. It was, it was blowing you away that it was the Democratic, and And Dwayne, boy, that whole family, get out of here.
Yeah, he didn't like me.
He wasn't a fan of Mr.
No.
Palmer.
And Chief
And what's
Justice
her name?
O'Connor, she didn't
Oh
like
my
me. No,
God.
she didn't like me.
She
But
did not.
it showed me look, I'm not going to say anything bad about her. It just, we had a fundamental disagreement. There was a question I was asked, and she asked it. She asked, well, doesn't the government have an interest in protecting people in their homes? And it was an interesting way. It was such an interesting question given the topic of the case, because the idea of a governmental interest in regulating something is relevant for purposes of almost any constitutional challenge. So you have to measure how much the government should have an interest in the regulating or the thing it's regulating. But the way it was asked, it was like, shouldn't the government get involved in protecting the safety of others in the home? And it was such a great segue for me to say, no, that's our job. That's the homeowner's job. We protect our homes. It's me well, you're telling me the government can't. I was like, no. I mean the homeowner's job. That's why we're here. It's the homeowner's job to protect their home. The home is their castle. And what I did is, and I knew, and she knew, and we both knew what was going on. It's like she was saying, well, there's a governmental interest in safety in the home, but it gave me a perfect segue to say, this is the point. We have a guarantee to protect the safety of our homes. It's a constitutional guarantee, and it's right there in the Second Amendment, and it says that we have a right to bear arms to do it. And then, if you have the case of D.C. versus Heller, the U.S. Supreme Court, and Judge Scalia, God bless him, he says that's an individual right, and the very fundamental core purpose of the right, according to Justice Scalia, is protection of the hearth and home. So it's not about a militia. It's not about all this other crazy nonsense. It is about self-preservation,
your individual right to protect what's yours and yours
in your home.
I was going to say,
in your home.
Why can you ask, well, how would you do that, Judge? How would the federal government protect me?
Well, because
they're called first responders for a reason.
See,
something has happened and they're responding.
And that was sort of the little segue that we cross wires on, because the terminology is the same, but the meaning of both are different. So the government has an interest, of course, of safety in the home. The government has that interest. And we were there to measure the significance and the weight of that government interest versus our individual right to keep and bear arms in our home. And I was saying, look, you brought up a point of the governmental interest of safety in the home, but that is the point I'm trying to make too, which is we have the right and the obligation and the duty to protect our home, and we can do it with firearms. That's what the Second Amendment says. And you're right. What is the government going to do if I happen to come home with a little bit of a buzz after being with a dude there at the ICU, and turns out a stalker followed me home, and I'm drunk? And this is the argument we made. This is how I started out. I started my argument by saying, it's like, imagine a situation where it's a young lady at a bar, say in Cleveland, and she's been in the flats, and she gives the bartender that
because
little
not
secret
to cut
signal.
it out, but to bring it up to listeners that do not know, I think you should give them kind of a backdrop of what you're defending.
Fair enough. Yeah.
And
this guy, my client, was accused and convicted of having a weapon while intoxicated. He was standing in his home with a shotgun in his hand, unloaded, pointing towards the ground, and the police came in and saw him. He was also under the influence of alcohol, admittedly under the influence of alcohol. And he was charged with having a weapon or having a firearm while intoxicated. It's a crime. It's misdemeanor of the first degree. My argument was, that's an unconstitutional law as applied to anybody in their home, because it basically would prohibit you from ever using a gun to defend yourself for the core purpose, to use it for the core purpose, protecting your hearth and home, just because you're intoxicated.
A home invasion after I had 3 martinis?
Or after, say, I had a Memorial Day weekend party.
Yeah.
And somebody disgruntled at the party came back
home.
I'm not allowed to.
And it's on your nightstand and you go to bed.
Yes. So the law in Ohio says carry or use, but we found cases where just being around it was enough to get convicted. And it really raises an interesting issue that hardly ever would come up. And I often get this response to it, like, well, how often is that going to happen? Who's going to get charged just because they're drunk and they had to defend themselves legitimately? And I'm thinking to myself, well, why does that matter?
Right. All it takes is one.
How often are you going to exercise your right to free speech in a public forum? Like once, twice in your life, you're going to go out and say something?
Right.
What if they said you're not allowed to exercise free speech while you're drunk because it's dangerous? you're thinking, wait a minute, whoa, wait a minute. Well, they're going to say it's dangerous to others to have a firearm in your home. It's like, it better be, because if somebody's coming in, I want to use it. That's the idea of it. So it's the backdrop of it was that this Mr. Weber was accused and convicted of having a gun while intoxicated. He was not directly engaged in self-defense, but my argument was, if you're going to make this a crime, then essentially you're saying it's a crime to defend yourself using a firearm at home just because you happen to be under the influence of alcohol. And then we let off with that argument. Like, imagine if you're a young lady and you're at the bar, say in the Flats in Cleveland, and you feel this weird person around you, and it's this dude who's been stalking you, following you, giving you weird looks, maybe even gave you a little grope or something. So you use the signal that they teach you with the bartender, like you hand him a note and the bartender sneaks you out the back door and they put you in an Uber, and you go home, but you're still worried because this guy knows where you live, and you're still concerned and you're still afraid. And you've recently purchased a firearm because you're afraid. Now you've had 3 or 4 drinks and you might be under the influence of alcohol. So you go to sleep at the Lazy Boy with a firearm on your chest, and then you hear and you're thinking, oh my gosh, is it the guy? What's going on? Is it the guy? And I think I hung it like that for a while. And I was like, and maybe it turns out it's the police at the door and they're checking up on you. But what if it is the guy? Is this young lady committing a crime right then and there? She's carrying and using a firearm in her home while under the influence of alcohol. Should that be a crime? And it really frames the issue.
Some judges listened. Some were just kind of like this with the roll of the eye, like hot air.
Mm-hmm.
It was, what I mean? And that's why you have the number that you have.
That's disconcerting.
Yeah.
They don't even want to listen to you. Wow, isn't that their job?
Well, I mean, they were listening. I don't want to say they weren't listening. I'm just going to say that they weren't agreeing. Yeah. There were some that were like, okay, I see where you're going. The others were just like, listen, here you come again with your made up stories.
Pretty unprofessional.
Nobody was unprofessional.
No, they weren't unprofessional.
Nobody was unprofessional. Nobody treated me inappropriately. It was a fundamental disagreement on what these rights mean. And look, I get it. I've been made fun of, eye rolled at my entire career. I remember standing in juvenile court as like 2 years into my practice or a year into my practice. And every time I made an argument, I always attached it. This is the 6th Amendment, Judge, or this is the 4th Amendment problem. You can't do this. This is a conclusive presumption, violates the 14th Amendment due process clause. And they used to call me, oh, Mr. Constitution's here. And, at first I was like, I felt a little embarrassed. And I was like, you know what? You're damn right. I do believe in this. And I really do. And I've always said that if you can take one, you can take them all. So don't take any of them.
You're damn right.
That it really is my pet peeve. And the worst pet peeve I have, I've said it before. It's like, well, we often restrict the First Amendment, and we don't let people do blah 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 blah.
That's what we've always done.
And I look at them and I say, yes, and that sucks too. And they look at me so strange. Yeah, but we do it. And I was like, all right, so let me get your argument here. We have one significantly impeding regulation on the First Amendment that we agree is bad, but we're going to use that to justify more with another amendment. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So we do it with this one, so we're going to do it with this other one too.
This way we've always done it, so we're just going to do it.
We're going to keep on doing it. Now,
it doesn't mean it's right.
You incrementally end up with no constitutional rights. So I am a firm believer in the Bill of Rights. It gives me chills even thinking about it. I read
15 days. Working on 15 months.
Well, during those 15 months, turns out, we got a decision out of State versus Weber, U.S. or the Ohio Supreme Court, that said, no, we disagree with you, Mr. Palmer. This law does not violate the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution. And we find that we're going to apply a standard of review that's pretty lenient, middle of the road standard review. We're not even going to call this like an important one. This is like an easy one. We can just summarily dispatch of this, and it's constitutional. I was asking for a standard review called strict scrutiny, meaning if you're going to impede a Second Amendment, you better have really, really, really good reasons to do it. And they said, no, just sort of middle level scrutiny. So during the 15 months, I drafted up what's called a petition for writ of certiorari to the United States Supreme Court. Just like what's his name? I'm drawing a blank. So, Jay's got strict scrutiny. So strict scrutiny, is that up for the world?
Wow. Yes. Huh? Yeah, I just put it up.
Okay. Basically, you have to have a compelling government interest that is narrowly tailored or narrowly drawn, they often say, to achieve that compelling purpose. It's got to be the least restrictive means to achieve the goal. And my argument to the Ohio Supreme Court, and now if the U.S. Supreme Court takes it, uh, is that this law could easily be more narrowly tailored or narrowly drawn. All you have to do is say, except when possessing or
Mm.
using a gun in the home for purposes of self-defense. Bingo. It doesn't mean you can't convict somebody for being a jackass with their gun in the house and
Right.
being reckless with it. That's a different crime, and it might even be this crime.
Negligent.
But you can't make it a crime just to carry or use a gun in the house if you're under the influence of alcohol. That was my argument.
So let me ask you just real quick. The burden of proof falls on the state in cases that require strict scrutiny, and that's what you were going for. That's why you wanted strict scrutiny.
I wanted strict scrutiny because it's really hard to withstand strict scrutiny. Strict scrutiny is the standard of review that if there's a regulation that directly impacts the core value of an amendment of something in the Bill of Rights, not just any amendment, but a fundamental constitutional right, then it has to be judged with strict scrutiny, meaning you can't just say there's a good reason to do it.
Right. And that said that the burden of proof falls on the state.
Correct. The state has to
Okay.
justify it once you raise it. And that would be true of any level of scrutiny, but it just how much they have to justify it matters. So, I guess Gideon was the guy. Old Gideon versus Wainwright is the guy who had in forma pauperis. He filed a petition for writ of certiorari in the U.S. Supreme Court because he didn't get a trial by jury in a misdemeanor case down there in Florida, and he forever changed the landscape of trial by jury. Or counsel, I mean, he didn't get a lawyer in a misdemeanor case. So because of old Gideon filing a petition on his own,
Oh, Gideon.
he that's why we have court appointed and public defenders for misdemeanor cases. So what I did is I filed a petition for writ of certiorari in the U.S. Supreme Court, and what I'm asking them to do is review my case. And it wasn't always obvious to me, so I'll just sort of lay this out. Like, just because you ask the Supreme Court to rule on something, they don't have to. They don't have to take cases. They can say, "Nah, nope, don't want to hear this one. Don't care about this. Not important enough." And the things that they don't look at, just generally, would be like, the jury found me guilty. I was really at mom's house at the time of the murder, so I'm not guilty. They're not going to look at that. They want to look at big picture legal pronouncements on fundamental constitutional rights. I think I'm talking about one. So we'll see if they take it. And if they take it, we'll take lawyer talk. I say, Justice Kavanaugh, is it okay if I set up the podcast table right over here and argue the case from the table here?
Hey, let me check my calendar.
Yeah. 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 So no, if it would be a phenomenal experience as an attorney to go stand in front of the U.S. Supreme Court and argue that case, and hopefully they'll take it.
Just real quick here, legal scholars, including judges and professors, often say that strict scrutiny is, quote, strict in theory, fatal in fact.
It used to be strict in theory, fatal in fact, because if the real question was what standard of review, and if you heard strict scrutiny, it almost always failed the test. That has not been the case. There's been a few cases lately where things have actually survived strict scrutiny.
This says 30% of the time.
Yeah.
However, an empirical study of strict scrutiny decisions in the federal courts found that laws survive strict scrutiny more than 30% of the time.
Yeah, and some of that is really how, there's been some other sort of watered down strict scrutiny that has been applied.
Interesting. However, a discrepancy was found in the type of religious liberty claim, with most claims for exemption from law failing and no allegedly discriminatory laws surviving. Interesting.
Yeah, and some of that was some of this is outcome oriented.
Okay.
They will go to great lengths to justify or not justify what they want.
Well, I always learn a lot when I'm here with Steve and Jared.
Now, today is June 2nd. So I do believe at 12 a.m., the mask mandates and everything in Ohio have been dropped.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm not wearing a mask today.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I'm fully vaccinated, so
Right.
with the truth.
So, yeah.
Yeah, fully vaccinated with the truth.
And the red pill.
Chicken pox. I think I got my chicken pox.
So, yeah, that's out today. Are they, I do believe there's still some kind of restrictions. Are they limited on space? I don't know what's going on.
I have no idea. I think my position on this will be the same as it always was. You want to wear a mask, put that thing on your face. If you don't want to wear a mask, don't put that thing on your face. You don't want to be around me, get around me, or don't get around me.
I said it earlier. We were walking around Branson. We were at Silver Dollar City. We were all at these places, taking tours, going to museums. And in the Ozarks, it was like COVID didn't exist.
Here's the problem. So it says Ohio's mask mandate, along with most of the remaining coronavirus health orders, expired Wednesday. Starting Wednesday, there is no state order requiring non-vaccinated adults to wear face coverings indoors or bars or restaurants to space out tables. State set restrictions have waned in recent months, blah, blah, blah. Is this just the honor system?
Well, you know what's coming, right? You have to start proving you're not.
Oh, yeah. And now
how does that? I don't think they're going to be able to. You can't do that. I don't think you're going to be able to do it.
How do they get around HIPAA? I mean, in theory, you can't ask me. That's against the law to ask me any medical.
Here's the case. There's a U.S. Supreme Court case called U.S. v. Jacobson. And I think it was U.S. v. Jacobson. And this goes way back to the Spanish flu, the 1918 flu, or whatever that was. And, you know, Jacobson was prosecuted for not getting the second vaccine, or he got one, but it didn't take, so he had to get another. It was something like that. I think it was out of somewhere in New England. And I think it's a horrible decision. There's talk about whether it even still would stand the test of time if revisited. But it's going to come to a head, whether they can ask you if you've had the shot, whether they can require vaccine passports. So whether they can,
I don't understand how human resources are even getting around. The law is pretty straight with HIPAA, but here's what's really interesting. So a couple of weeks ago, OSHA, Occupational Safety Health Administration, came out and said, "Hey, if you're a business and you're going to require your employees to have the shot, if they get injured, that's an OSHA recordable on you." Ooh.
Well,
there goes your insurance money.
That's again, gosh, I hate that. That's sort of like when they did the PPP, and it's like shoving the responsibility back.
Well, you knew that was going to happen because they're mandating it. You know they're not going to take liability for it.
No, of course not.
So that's one shoe to drop.
It's just amazing to me how people don't like. To me, this is so troubling that it just I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm an attorney. I'm always able to sort of step aside and say, all right, what are we doing? We've got the government forcing people to get a vaccine. I don't care if it works. I don't care if it doesn't work. But the government's forcing people to get a vaccine. How is that right? And then what if you don't get the vaccine? How do they enforce it? Well, I'm sorry, sir, you're not allowed to get on an airplane because you don't have this little card that we've issued you. And I'm sorry, sir, you're not allowed to cross over to New York to go fishing this summer because you don't have this little card that we would give to you. I'm sorry, sir, you can't come in here and shop, but we'll deliver food to your car door. But you don't have this little card.
We think it's bad here, though. Canada is blowing it up because they're ridiculous right now. Canada's a whole nother beast.
Well, it's because they're not free. They're still under the crown.
They don't have the Bill of Rights.
They don't.
They do not.
They don't.
Anybody thinks it can't happen to you, it's happening to the Canucks up north.
Well, and what's funny is, so eventually, if I have to have this stupid ID, but man, you don't have to have an ID to vote because that's freaking racist.
Well, what? I mean, this is
is so much more intrusive. It's unbelievable to me.
It's a good point. And to say that you have to have a vaccine card.
Oh my God.
And if we're able to produce mass vaccination cards, couldn't we get everybody an ID to do other things if that's really what the goal is? And so I would just say, I don't care about the veracity of what they're regulating or what they're trying to. I care about the power that they're taking in order to get it done.
Right.
Because if it's vaccines this time, it'll be something else you don't like next time.
Yep. Even worse. It'll just get worse. This will not get better. The mask mandate still holds for public transportation, planes, trains, automobiles, buses, public transport.
It's so stupid.
Yep.
I have to make a special mask. One that's got like a screen in it so I can breathe.
I'm going
to travel. I've got to travel. I've got to get on a plane here in a couple of months. I think I'm going to take that big thing with the canisters on it. I think I'm going to wear that.
That would actually filter out a virus. Masks do not. N95 masks do not. And They don't filter out a particle either, which is a spike protein, and that's what's making you sick. People, you heard it here first.
Now, go ahead.
Wake up.
I think I'm gonna wear the serial killer.
Well, I'm looking to
respirator.
do a bunch of traveling with Jason Banks.
Oh yeah, he's on the road.
And this has been it has come to my mind because we're working on new deals and jobs. I'll give you a rundown. Starting here now, the simple one here's Toledo, Ohio, Tempe, Arizona, Columbus, Ohio, Miami, Florida, Liberty Township, Ohio, Memphis, Tennessee, Virginia Beach, Ogadon, Utah. Or is it OGDEN? What is that? What is that? Ogden, Utah. And then we'll be in Nashville, Huntsville, Alabama, Hoover, Alabama, Omaha, Denver, Colorado, Albany, New York, Hartford, Connecticut, Dayton, Ohio, Royal Oak, Michigan, St. Louis, Syracuse, Des Moines, Fort Worth, Dallas, Lexington, Orlando, Raleigh, North Carolina, Richmond, Virginia, Kansas City, Missouri, and Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Holy God,
And
Jason
that
Banks
right there,
is blowing up.
And all of those that I named to you got to remember are 4 to 7 shows.
Whew.
And so I'm going to be going with them, helping them with merch, helping with support, going through, getting everything done. And we've been talking about it, of what we're going to be able to drive to and what we're going to have to fly to.
Yeah.
Now, the one out of all of this list here, Shorty knows I'm going on this run here, on this 6-month tour here of the United States. Pretty good tour. That's nice. That's a big tour. Minneapolis. Shorty was like this. She's like, I really don't know. Minneapolis. All the other ones, she was, but Minneapolis. And then I kind of thought about it too. It's just like,
sort of scary, isn't it?
Now, the one we're going to in Memphis, and this is coming from, Banks here too. He's like, okay, we're doing one there in Memphis. Now, the club that we're doing is a primarily black club. You know what I mean? And there's different parts of Memphis.
Oh yeah, Memphis is pretty rough.
It can get pretty rough in there. And but really, I did started thinking about Minneapolis. I was like, what am I going to do when we go there? How are he? He doesn't have a lot of Floyd jokes, or anything like that. But that's we're going to.
It's funny you bring this up, because I would say that 2 or 4 years ago, you probably wouldn't have.
Thought nothing about Minneapolis.
Thought nothing about anything racial related. It's like, I wouldn't have thought twice about it. And it's not even that, man, I don't know. It's just, it's odd. The whole thing is odd. It's like there's an aftershock or an unintended consequence to this. Like, now you're thinking, wow, I mean, this is going to be a problem. What are they going to say? And it's not that you don't care, but now all of a sudden it's weird. It's just, the whole thing is insane. And then Minneapolis just isn't a safe city now.
No, it's not.
No. And it has nothing to do with race. It has everything to do with no cops.
No cops. And everything's been closed down. I mean, their problems are large there. And it's like, we're going to go do a comedy show?
Like there, right. So what happens there?
It feels like I'm going to, it's like Baghdad or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just, I guess that's a little bit far, but really I've seen the news. Yeah. It kind of resembles a lot of the things that I would see that happened in Baghdad. It looked like burning cities.
Yeah.
But, on that, I guess we got to go out there and give the tour of laughter and bring people back together. The latest show he did, the Improv there, was the 28th to the 30th in Tampa. Once again, all the shows are sold out. The Ohio show, all the shows that are up, tickets are up for sale, have been selling out very fast. And
thanks.
Florida clubs are a little bit different than the one we did the previous weekend was in Cleveland. Because they were still, this was before we're in Cleveland. It's not the second, but they still had their limited seating. I mean, the shows they did in Tampa were packed houses because we're in Florida, packed houses.
Right.
But it's going to be interesting. I'm going to go to places that I haven't been. And like I say, I'm not going to be driving out to Utah. I'm not going to, like the Nashville run, we're probably going to drive to Nashville because we go from Nashville the 24th. And then the 25th, we're in Alabama. And then the 26th through the 27th, we're in Alabama. And so we'll drive to those. And it's going to be interesting. It's going to be an adventure. We got a meeting with him coming up here in Channel 511 this Friday.
Yeah.
Talking about putting together a new website and Patreons for him.
Yep.
He's got some great ideas. We've got some great new merch coming out because people are buying it. And that's one thing I found here too. shirts, hats, glasses, vinyl wrap.
Can't get it.
He's just and everybody, people are gonna have to right off the jump charge more. It comes back to deliveries you were just talking about, because everything is costing more. But what I have noticed is that people have really quickly became accustomed to paying more.
Well, but I think
Are
eventually,
you saying when will it run out? Because we kind of at one point, in the podcast here, we were talking about how, the walls are crumbling and everything's ending, which that, things aren't be as good as they have, and we'll get through it. Period.
we'll get through it. But it's right now people are willing to pay more, I think, for a lot of stuff because they haven't been able to do anything for so long.
Yes.
And at some point that's going to wear off. Like there's a price point for everything. And I saw one person I know on Facebook I just went down this rabbit hole reading some of these comments, and they were talking about, like no tax for the lower or the middle class. Yeah, right. And their point was, I have to pay X dollars more per gallon of gas to get to the jobs I'm working. And I think this person had a cleaning business. And I immediately, I realized last week I had to raise everybody's rates by $5 a month or $5 per session per clean. And people were bucking it. They didn't like it. And she's like, I don't have a choice. I can't, my margins don't work this way.
Yep.
I've got to charge you more because I'm paying that much more to get to your house.
Yes.
And that is a tax.
And it's not a trivial amount either.
It adds up.
I filled up today, $3 a gallon.
Yeah.
It was $1.29 not 4 months ago.
Yeah. Last year we were, for the good old days, we were in the dollar for the
dollar.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, $1.29 versus $3, and that's going to continue to go up.
Yep. It
changes.
changes.
As this administration just restricted drilling in the Arctic refuge and all this other stuff.
Yep. Well, as Banks was looking into it, the price of air tickets are way up.
Yep.
And we're trying to do the math right now down to, because I've got another list in here where I've written down through the whole list and wrote down all the miles. I wanted to see where it was at, estimated time travel and everything, and all the miles on there. It's like, we're gonna have to figure out what it costs.
Mm-hmm.
Now it cost me, and I filled up, so I didn't drain the tanks down. But I'm gonna say it was probably about $120 to do a round trip to Branson and back
In the big
in the
rig?
diesel.
Yeah.
In the diesel.
Oh, the diesel.
Yeah, and I don't know what it cost in the
You didn't pull
Tahoe.
anything, did you?
No, it wasn't. Oh, I had my bike in the back. I gave my bike a ride.
Hell, that's nothing.
Speaking of which, I've been looking at these. Anyway, go ahead.
Take
So
a class if you're
taking your,
looking, Steve. Take a
No,
class.
it wasn't. It was
Right.
it was a. I'm looking at tonneau covers for my truck.
Oh yes.
And they got this one. I think it's called the Renegade. This thing, it's like I always end up doing this, right? I end up landing on the nicest, awesomest thing. And then I
Funny
get
how that
obsessed.
always happens.
You start researching. I was like, man, I really need one that does this, and then you find the one that does that. Yeah, but if it also did this, it would be really cool. And then you get to the one, and it's twice as much as it.
Is it
all the-
electric?
No. You
Okay.
can pull it. It's a Renegade. It's a solid load bearing tonneau cover
Oh, okay.
that flips back in thirds.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
it comes off in 2 seconds if you don't want it. And
Yeah.
it's got channels for tie downs.
Oh, the old metal
Here, pull it-
butterfly.
No. That's not
That
it.
one?
Look up the Renegade.
Right there, Renegade.
Yeah, open the Renegade. Renegade bed covers. There you go.
Tonneau.
Yeah. There's only one kind.
Ooh, heavy duty tonneau.
So there we are. Look at that. Is everybody watching this?
Yeah.
Look how much that thing is. I probably can't buy it, but man, it's nice. It's nice.
Oh
Yeah,
my
that's pretty
God.
nice. That's pretty nice. Yeah.
It's too much.
Oh, there it is. That's why it's
but
nice.
you can put a
Diamond
motorcycle.
plate.
People
Yeah.
are putting motorcycles and four wheelers.
Yeah, you got diamond
they
plate
drive
up
right up
there.
there and strap it down on top of that.
Oh,
and
look
then
at that.
Yeah.
Oh, I like
So
that.
you can store a load on top of that.
Yeah, that's nice.
Now, the price is high, but if you're buying a cap, it's about the same price.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you have to start talking utility and
Load
cost.
bearing. That's nice.
It's load
Yeah,
bearing.
that's
I wish,
really
I wish you'd have
nice.
never showed that to me.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Yeah, look at this. This guy, oh my God, they got a job box up there.
Look at that.
Oh, dear me.
Go through the one. The guy's got a four-wheeler on it.
Oh.
He's got motorcycles on it. They got
It's 2,300 to 2,800.
yeah. Well, that has to do with like how long your bed is. Oh, there you go.
Oh, oh yeah,
at that.
that's sweet.
I should
Now
call
the
them.
question is, how do you get that up there?
There's a video on it. They got ramps. You got to put your bed down because they said the pressure on the bed as you're driving it up might not be good. But
heavy duty tie downs. Oh, Jared.
I mean, isn't that cool?
Nice.
And then they got the tent sit. Look at that thing.
Oh, I've been looking at these for a while.
They got the actual rack there that gives you a little bit of elevation above it, so you have a whole nother section of storage. That guy's got a spool.
Oh, look at that, a spool
of wire in case you needed that.
Because you will.
Loaded drywall.
Oh, I love that. That is
so
nice.
I'm saving. I looked at all the other options. I landed on that one, and now nothing's going to be what I want except for that.
Nope.
That's like when I walk into a furniture store, a clothing store, or anything. Whenever I see something will catch my eye, and I walk up to it, look at the price tag, and I'm like, oh, now I see why you caught my eye.
Right.
Yeah, it does everything.
I'll tell you.
So it turns out
I just got a new front door.
My wife does that.
Rosati.
Yeah.
I just got a new big, and it's got and it's nice.
Mm-hmm.
And
those things cost.
That's kind of what I said to is like, if I ever move, I'm gonna go to Home Depot, buy a cheap door,
take
this one
with me.
Yeah.
Swap it out.
I will give a shout out there to the boys at Rosati's though. They came and installed it nice, and they were great. Great to work with.
I think Brett's talked to Rosati a time or two.
And man, what a nice door.
I'm gonna call up the Renegade guys.
Man, your old win.
Yeah. when you're
got me a nice door.
It used to be, man, that was a great bottle of whiskey.
That's right.
No, boy, my front door, boy.
Would you stop and by, and I'll show you my door.
You want to come check out my tonneau cover.
Bring your tonneau cover.
Bring your tonneau.
I'll check that out, and you can look at my door. Hey, I'll tell you what. Shorty sat on the inside of the house and outside of the house yesterday, just looking at the door. A couple times I did too. I'd walk up. I'm like, man, it's a good looking door.
And you get to go through it every day.
Black on the outside and walnut on the inside.
You want to go through it every day?
You get to your old win.
We gotta adjust our living room now because that's the door that I had a TV in front of it. We didn't use the front door. We used the side door.
Yeah.
But now it's kind of like
you'll transform your home.
Now it's like, look at this door.
All right. Well,
here's cover up the door.
Here's what we're going to do. I promised to talk about World War II every episode. We're not going to talk long. I was going to say this on June 2nd, 1942.
Yep.
We're going to jump from Dunkirk. And ironically, this is when Dunkirk ended. We talked about Dunkirk last time. This is when Dunkirk ended. But in 1942, this is when we were getting ready for one of the biggest naval battles of all time in the Pacific Ocean called Midway. And what it was, the Japanese were trying to lure our fleet away with all sorts of diversions. They were trying to take the island of Midway because as they island hopped across the Pacific Ocean, it gave them a strategic advantage and they were hoping to gain a surrender. They had their first real loss, I think, of the Pacific and Coral Sea. Right before that, they thought they sunk the Yorktown. Was it the Yorktown they thought they sunk?
Yes.
They thought they sunk the Yorktown, but no way. Good old American ingenuity comes through again. They haul that sucker back to Honolulu and they patch her up and they send her out to Midway because we had been, unbeknownst to the Japanese, cracking their code. We had the code crackers going, and sort of the neat little Hollywood story is that we thought we had their code cracked. We knew there was an attack coming somewhere on an island, and in order to confirm that we had a code cracked, we sent out a diversionary message. So the United States sends out a message that
their water treatment facility was down on the island.
The water treatment facility was down on Midway.
Yep.
And we needed a repair. And then they monitored the Japanese communication afterwards because they thought, was it AK was what the Japanese code for it was?
I believe so, yeah.
They thought that they had identified it as Midway, as AK, but then the Japanese repeated it. They said, AK has a water treatment problem. And
well, it was actually kind of touch and go there because the guy who figured it out had to sell it to the top brass because top brass, they weren't looking at Midway as the strike point. They're looking at something else. And so he had to devise his plan in order to get buy-in from the top brass.
And isn't it so amazing? It's like you get these guys in the lower, there's so many stories like this in history that there's like one dude who knows what's going on. He can't convince the guy in charge that he knows what's going on. And so what does he do? He creates his own strategy so it's bulletproof. He says, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to create this idea. I'm going to send out this smoke screen or this bait and see if the Japanese take it. They took it. He went to the brass. They said, oh, you must be right. And we were able to intercept the Japanese fleet at Midway. They had no idea that we had the carriers there. They had no idea that the Yorktown was active. And we engaged in one of the, I think it's one of the most studied naval battles of all time.
As a noted naval historian by the name of Craig Simons, spelled Symonds, which is the actual name, my last name, but they changed it when we came over. He called it the one of the most consequential naval engagements in world history, ranking alongside Salamis, Trafalgar, and the Tsushima Strait as both tactically decisive and strategically influential.
Interesting. Well, the battle didn't start until June 4, but I brought it up on June 2 because we weren't going to be here on June 4, and this was the closest thing I could bring up.
Well, and they're cracking the code, and the plan was set already to finally zero in on Midway.
And again, this does say something, my bigger picture analysis of American ingenuity. One, we had a code breaker who was able to not only crack the code, but crack through the brass and get his position heard and known. And I don't think that was necessarily anything that would have happened against or in the with the Japanese or the Nazis, and maybe not even with the Soviets, although that's a whole nother crazy story. And the other thing is that the Japanese were Yamamoto was a known planner. Like he would tactically plan out in such detail that he was considered brilliant, except when the details didn't add up or they didn't shake out, they didn't fall into place the way they needed to. It was difficult in the flow or in the heat of battle to change. And there's a story that is true where they kept having to change from the long range to the short range planes or the torpedoes. You got the dive bomber torpedoes, or you got the drop bomb torpedoes onto Midway Island.
Right. And they had the airstrips there, so they were going to bomb the airstrips.
Right. So
there was also a lot of political wrangling in the Japanese fleet too, between the Imperial Navy and the Army. And Yamamoto finally won the day, but he picked Midway because it was 1,300.
Let him see it. You're talking.
It was 1,300 miles.
There he is.
Northwest or northeast of Hawaii, and I'd forgotten this is after Doolittle raid. Mm-hmm. So the Doolittle raid in April of this year of 42 prompted Yamamoto to pick Midway. He thought another strike on Pearl would bring everybody out, so he decided to go to Midway, and they didn't think that the Yorktown was sailable.
Yeah, so
it was just fascinating.
Yep, we patched up the old Yorktown. We had planes galore, so we had a whole separate fleet of attack planes that the Japanese didn't know about. And like anything, it comes down to like one dive bomber at the right time in the right place, and he is able to sink the key Japanese carriers. And it just, a coin toss, this goes a different direction. And
look at it.
And the war
just
changes
a spit
forever.
of sand out there with an airfield on it.
And it just shows you that, how close things were, but also how important it was for us to win the war to use what I think people are now taking for granted. That is our innate ability to deal with problems on our own without a rigid command structure telling us how to do it. Because, you can zero down to the finest point, telling people what time to wake up, what socks to wear, and how high to pull them up. But eventually that backfires and you end up with a bunch of rigidity that is not only rigid, but in the converse, inflexible. And then when decisions have to be made on the fly, nobody has any practice, experience, or even authority to do it. And then they lose. It was true with the Nazis. And I think in this situation, it was somewhat true with the Japanese. They were making decisions. They were scrambling around, changing their torpedoes here and there. They lost the battle. And ultimately that was the turning point in the Pacific.
It destroyed the Imperial Navy.
And
it wiped them out. And so instead of Japan getting their death blow that they were hoping on our Navy, we crushed theirs, and that was it.
That was it. They didn't have any reserves.
They didn't have any reserves, and that was the battle plan of the day. And remember, this war will not be fought like the last war. So at that time, it was all about naval superiority and all this other stuff. Of course, Hitler did something way different, and but they were not prepared to not have their Imperial Navy.
Yes, that is true. So,
and also to your other point, Steve, I think in analyzing all this, I think when the lead starts flying, if you have a rigid form of command and control, you're going to get people killed on the ground. If you cannot go into small units and do what we did and do what we do today, that's the best thing we do. And you get your objective that way.
Yeah.
You're stuck in place. And when you're stuck in place, you're dead.
It's sort of like it's such an interesting thing because it seems on its face inconsistent with military command structure to say that we let our troops sort of engage on the ground as they need be. Because I think if you asked everybody, they would say, no, you don't do that. But then it really happens and you don't get punished.
It was almost by default. Yeah. So especially in D-Day, because we had so many misdrops and everything. So our commanders, our guys, the young officers took it upon themselves to cobble together units. And we still have an objective. We got to go do it.
Yeah,
you're not going to wander around with your thumb up your butt. Let's go.
Right. And you say young officers. This is like Hitler would say that the Americans were weak and they're capitalist and they're soft and they don't know what they're doing. And these were farmers.
Yes.
These were school teachers. These were business guys. These were in country folks, city folks of all walks of life who had zero military training or experience prior to this, and they dropped them on the ground behind enemy lines, and they won the war. So anyway, we'll move on from that. We'll have another one next week, but lots of stuff here at 511. The comedian Jared, you've already talked about it. Bank's blowing up. You guys in here tonight?
We will be in recording tonight, and then we'll be going to Red Rock to the open mic.
Yeah, come check it out. Red Rock. Where's Red Rock?
Red Rock is in Black Lake, Ohio, right up Broad Street there, just north of 605 New Albany Reynoldsburg Road.
That's you and all the comics in tow. So, so check that out. Here at Lawyer Talk, as always, you can go to our website at Ohio or lawyertalkpodcast.com. Submit questions. We've had a few, and we'll take them on. You can get your own podcast at channel511.com. We've been talking to Brett. We've got a questionnaire now that's going to go up that sort of helps you hone in on what you need for your own podcast. If it's business related, we can help. If it's just, hey, man, I just want to talk about something, we can help with that too. And as always, if you really, really like what you're hearing here, if you like what you're hearing with the comedians or any other content you're getting live or otherwise, go to Patreon, become a Patreon member. If all million of you people listening right now just give us $1 a day, we're going to be millionaires. Is that how that works?
We will give back.
So yeah, no, I'm just seriously, if you do want to support it, we are volunteering to provide this awesome content. I mean, where else can you learn about World War II history?
If everybody gave $1 who's watching, we each could have $1.
Right, we could go buy. we could go eat off the Taco Bell 99-cent menu.
All of us, all three of us.
Yeah, all three of us.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
now when you put in tax.
Yeah. Well, I only got to pay for the gas to get there.
Yeah. Government overreach again.
Pay for the tax. But no, we got some guests coming up. We'll disclose next week. Other than that, this has been yet another riveting episode of Lawyer Talk, live off the record, but on the air. Until now.
See ya.
Not so bad.